Hey there guys, so if you're new to my channel, you'll notice that I train at times a little bit differently to others, but in this video I'm going over the current exercises that I'm using in order to grow my back. Now, with powerlifting and the rest of it, trying to stick to just a set program all the time is going to have limitations. So you'll notice, I'll change exercises as I need. I have a general base that I follow, but I'm more than happy to swap exercises in and out to get the results that I need. There's no point in being extremely rigid because you miss out on things. And if you can also take the approach that some of the exercises that you're going to use in a training program are only there to serve the purpose that you need at that immediate time, and then you switch them out, you're going to be a lot better off long term, and you're not going to constantly be trying to add all these different exercises to your training program that then makes, what you need to do this really, really long list of tasks as opposed to training effectively and efficiently. So having said that, one of the exercises that I'm really going hard on at the moment is shrugs, and that's for upper back development. Obviously, it's going to hit the traps. The way that I do them is a little bit different. I like to retract my scapula because that's the exact same thing I do when I bench press, because powerlifting, you want to make sure that you've got really good, scapular retraction, being able to hold them in place. So you do that in order to be more stable on the bench press. So for me, I'm doing shrugs, I'm retracting the scapula, and then I'm shrugging. It's not the longest range of motion. It will limit your total range of motion. But, as I said, this is an exercise that I'm doing in order to have carryover to my powerlifting movements. So I'm doing them like that. I'm shooting for higher reps. The goal is to hit 2 sets of 50. This is 176 kilos. I'm shrugging 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes it's 1 set, sometimes it's 4 sets. It really depends on how well I've recovered, what work's done to me in terms of shifts and things like that. Fridays, for example, that's a 15-hour work day. Start at 6 a.m., finish at 2 p.m., and then start again at 5 p.m. and go through till midnight. So on a Friday, I do very little. I just do the one-arm overhead press. Now, coming back again, to shrugs, normally I like doing them with the trap bar now. Previously, I did them with dumbbells. Same concept, retract the scapula and just shrug. The higher reps as well, I just found that I was able to feel the muscle work more as a whole, especially with the reduced range of motion. And then secondly to that, it's obviously hitting my forearms really hard from a grip point of view. Having stronger hands, forearms, it's going to carry across to all your other exercises. It's also going to help with bench press as well. You're just stronger in the forearms and, right down to the elbow joint. And I think it's something that a lot of powerlifters lack. They always need wrist straps and things like that. I bench press heavy without using wrist straps even equipped. The other one that I'm doing, and I haven't really done it much in the past, is rows. So I've started including rows, and that's just really to work more of the mid-back. I feel that a lot more, I'm going to say closer to where the spine is, not the actual spine itself, but that real inner mid-back, just right next to the spinal erectors. So, and that's more in the mid and upper as opposed to shrugs, which just hits my whole of my upper back really quite well. So with the rows, just mucking around 4 to 5 sets, playing around with 10 reps, typically keeping the break times at that 2-minute mark. And that's just to, pump a whole lot of blood also into the area, chasing hypertrophy. So, I'm not having the traditional 5 to 7 minute breaks that I'd normally have for powerlifting when it comes to heavy movements. And then with the rows, I'm only doing them once a week at the moment. Typically, I'm doing them after pull-ups. The reason, I didn't do a lot of rows is, it just uses a lot of lower back if you're stabilizing. So, I'd rather save my lower back for something like my squats and my deadlifts. Because, if I'm doing squats heavy and then doing deadlifts heavy and rows heavy, my lower back just, it's not going to like it. Pull-ups, that's a staple that I always keep, unlike the rows, which I switch in and out. Pull-ups, I'm doing, 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes it's 4 sets, sometimes it's 1 set. At the moment, I was mucking around with German volume training. I was doing 10 sets of 10, and that really does gas me out. Now, with the pull-ups, unlike the rows and a lot of traditional back movements, there is no spinal compression. It's actually a bit of decompression on the spine, and I like that, especially if you have a lower back injury or anything of the like. It's really easy to do pull-ups, or if you're not strong enough to do pull-ups, you can swap it for lat pull-down. Personally, I prefer pull-ups. I like the idea of being able to shift my own body weight. I think that's quite important. And if you can't, it just shows that you got, some underlying weaknesses that you need to work on. So it just gives you a good idea of how your physique is, handling training and where you are actually at. One of my goals is to work up to a set of 20 for pull-ups. Best I've done so far, I think, is a set of 17 or 18. I can't really remember of these ones. I used to do them neutral grip, and that I did them neutral grip for quite a while because it was easier on the shoulders, and it just took me a while to adapt to being able to do them this way. So, if you're one of those people that can only do neutral grip, by all means, hit 2 or 3 sets of neutral grip, and then at the end, throw in a set or 2 of just regular pull-ups. Stop shy of failure. Don't go into a complete dead hang is my advice if you're heavier. Sometimes it irritates the shoulders. Occasionally I'll do it, but only for a set. I wouldn't recommend doing heaps of sets into a dead hang, especially if you've got a whole lot of other training exercises that are heavily demanding upon the shoulder and the shoulder joint itself. At the end of the day, pull-ups are just an exercise. I'm just trying to get better at them. I'm using them as a tool to grow a bigger back. They work my lats really well. The other thing that I prefer is, I got a power rack outside. It's so easy for me to just walk outside, knock out a few sets of pull-ups, as opposed to having to go to the gym and then, use a lat pull down, for example. So yeah, that's another reason why I just really prefer pull-ups. Overhead shoulder press. A few people might be questioning why. The reason I like this is my scapula has to work really, really hard to hold position. So all the muscle groups surrounding it are going into overdrive to really, hold position under load. If I have stable shoulders under heavy load, it's going to carry across to my bench press. For me, after doing, quite a few sets of this, I get a really good pump in the shoulders and triceps, but I can really feel that my upper back has been worked thoroughly. If I was to do, say, pull-ups the day before and then hit some heavy shrugs, and then, try and do shoulder press the next day in this variation, just the shoulders are fine, but my upper back gives out. I literally cannot hold position well, and I gas out really quickly, and that's just from a stabilization point of view. So for me, this is an exercise that I include to address that. It also just helps to be, proficient at pressing overhead and just having everything you need in your upper back complete as one picture. Another exercise that I haven't done that I'm doing at the moment is the rear delt flies. Typically 4 sets of 25, just doing them normally once a week, and I'll do that after bench press. And again, that's just to hit the rear delts, because it's one of the few exercises that really pushes them to failure as a muscle group working, as opposed to them just working in an assistance role. Deadlifts at the moment, deadlifting once a week, it'll either be with a deadlift bar, or it will be trap bar deadlifts. At the moment, because I'm training a fair bit at home, I'm leaning towards the trap bar deadlifts. I'm just doing 3 sets of 5. I'm typically doing that on a Tuesday after squats, because that way all my heavy lower back stuff is done in one session, and then it frees up the rest of the week to be accessory movements. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, have a great day wherever you are.